Just the best. So I made myself just one burger and I made my wife also another burger, but my wife is not here. So if she's not back by the time we end this call, guess who's gonna eat her burger? I'll send her a text message, hey, pick up McDonald's for yourself. Looks like looks like we've got project schedule for today. How's your network diagram going? I know yesterday we I touched base with a lot of people who shared their diagram, and I was given feedback as well. And for of course for a lot, we're making sort of changes on the spot, and also explain the process just so they're all familiar with network designs. And so we were looking at two things. That's the physical layout and the logical layout. And so today, remember that review is not sort of the official review, which is on the 27th, sorry, 27th. So on the 27th is going to be just a quick review for a lot of students with us in the course. So most likely with each students will probably be spending like 5 minutes. It won't take that long, just so they can like sort of get their grade on the spot. So for those who are not meeting with me on the 27th, I'm not giving them their grade, right? So if they want to hold back, you go for it. Hold back. I can grade you if you don't submit something that I can grade you. So if you want your grades, see me on the 27th. You'll get your grade for the first two phases. Okay. For the first two phases. So let's look at the project. Let's look at the project schedule and see what we have planned there. Oh, we'll also look at a sample. So just so we all know what's going on and what's happening. Can somebody hit that record button, please? Because I think our situation is different. I know that. Um, can you guys hit that record button if you don't mind? Oh, perfect. We are recording. Perfect. Amazing. So like I said, we went through the diagrams for those who reached out to me yesterday. We were just going through giving feedback on the diagram because it was just sort of a work period yesterday. And that's okay for those who didn't have the chance to talk to me yesterday. You'll have the chance to talk to me again anytime really until the 27th. Okay. So just so you guys know, I do give priority to capstone students when answering questions. Uh, so um, what I'm trying to say, like I'm going to respond to you really as soon as I can. You are definitely going to have a priority when I'm looking at questions sent to me either on Teams or by email. It's just the nature of capstone. It's very sensitive. I know students are all stressed a little bit more compared to others, but and so for that reason, I do prioritize capstone. Okay, I'm gonna I'm going to share my screen. I'm gonna share my screen, and then we're gonna look at the project schedule requirements. And then I'll show you a sample as well. And then I'll show you a sample. Hold on. Sharing is on Teams. Hmm, where is that? There, right here. Share this screen. Can you guys see that? I think it'll take some couple of seconds before it shows up on your screen. All good? Okay, perfect. We looked at the network design, so that's done. For those who are still working on it, I don't suggest you postpone that because now we're looking at the schedule. The schedule is a little bit time consuming. So in the schedule, now we start looking at, so you go back to your diagram and then you say, okay, for what do I have to do first? I'm going to talk about that too. What do you have to do first? I'm going to tell you what you need to do first, so don't worry about that. And what are some of the tasks that I need to complete to finish up everything that you see on the diagram? Okay. So let's go through the project schedule. So I'm going to download this document. Nothing too fancy here. And maybe I'm going to look also, I'm going to go to Moodle, pull up the samples from the previous term, just so you guys can see it as well. Maybe it's best that we do that also at the same time, because as I'm explaining, maybe it makes sense just to look at the samples and then give an example of how does that normally implemented, right? Just so we're all on the same page. So let me go to Moodle. That is, hopefully Moodle is still up. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Was the previous term 1232? Is it? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Okay. Let's look at the project schedule. Project schedule. View. Oh no. Do I not have Microsoft Project installed on this laptop? Because I formatted my laptop, right? I reinstalled everything. Why is it showing me like that? I don't have Project installed on my laptop. Do you guys have Project installed on your laptop? Anybody? Because we can just, I can just send you the file and then you can open it up on your screen, or I can just download it right away. Um, maybe I'll just download it. Maybe I'll just download it while I'm going through the requirement. Let me just download Microsoft Project and then install it on my laptop. So let's do that. And I think I sent the link earlier in the chat. Where is that? Where is the link for? Where is the link for? Oh, there we go. Microsoft Azure DevTools. Copy, copy, paste. Sign in. Huh. I thought I had it already. That's weird. Anyway, learning resources, software, and then let's go look for project. Project, huh? DVD? What? Huh? Come on, come on, come on. Give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. Come on, come on, come on, come on. How big is this thing? 4 gig. 3 minutes, 4 minutes? That's not bad, right? Like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. That's not bad if it's taking that long. Okay, so let me go back to this document, which is the project schedule requirements. Okay. Um, there we go. Okay. So I suggest you take this time and download Microsoft Project as well, just so you guys have it installed on your laptop too, or on your computer at home, whatever it is. So let's go through this document. Here's the project schedule requirements. So what you have to do is develop a detailed project schedule that outlines all the tasks, milestones, deadlines, and responsible parties involved in the project. Of course, the involved parties will be you. But the validation will be, for example, a meeting with an instructor for the validation, okay? The schedule should be clear, comprehensive, and well organized to facilitate effective project management. So here's the instructions for the assignment. So what you have to do. One of the first things you have to do is, so you have to, you see all the categories of technologies that are mentioned in your project charter. So again, this is why I said like you need to figure it out from your design. What are some of the technologies that you have to include? We know some of them are fixed, and one of the technologies you guys can pick between Linux and SharePoint, but that decision must be already made when you are doing your network design. You can change it later on in the project if you struggled with SharePoint or Linux or whatever it is, and you want to switch back and forth. That's fine. Make sure you also update the documents. Is all what I'm saying. But if you want to look at all the categories, so what we want to do, if I open up Notepad here, what we want to talk about first is, so one of the first things you have to do, this is going to relate to the project schedule, so just give me a minute. Those are all the categories or the different sort of call them like milestones that you have to sort of achieve in your project, right? So one of the first things that you have to do is you want to build your router. What? What's happening with my keyboard again? Dude, okay, so we want to go router setup. Okay, and configuration. So what config. So what you want to do is, for example, one of them activities that you want to complete is, that is, again, you have to decide if you want to do pfSense. So remember, there is pfSense, there is OpenSense. If you can't figure out how pfSense works, there is also OpenSense. And you also will have Windows LAN routing, right? Windows LAN routing is the easiest one to implement. So for example, if you decided to do Windows LAN routing, break down the activities that you have to do into tasks just so you can complete setting up your router. What would that entail? That will entail, for example, building a virtual machine, building and installing Windows LAN routing. Maybe that's, sorry. So building Windows VM, we have to break that down. And then you want to set up, so you want to, you want to do router prep. So this is what I've seen students do. They do router prep. And part of that is you want to set up static IP. So you want to go static, interfaces. You want to go set up interfaces, static IP, and static IPs, right? And so this is, for example, all the things that you have to do when you are building a router. If there's anything else that you need to do over there, I've seen some students, they break down the, like sort of the router prep into more subtasks. That is, if you have multiple people involved in the project. We see that in a group implementation, but this is a sort of individual solo project. If you know what that means to you, because I'm going to ask you, right? And say, hey, what does this mean exactly? So when I read your project plan, when the time comes for me to grade you, if you can explain that, that's fine, right? Because this is exactly the same idea that you're going to do out there with the client. You're going to explain it to the client as well, right? So you may wish to break this down into even further subtasks, or you just leave it like that. And then what you have to do is you want to build Windows servers, and then you want to ping connectivity, ping between sites, 3 sites. Okay, so you want to like build virtual machines for each site and then start like sort of ping each other to make sure the router can actually forward the ping, right? So that's what you want to check. Okay, so this is, for example, one milestone. Okay, so that's one milestone. Another milestone right after this will be, for example, building. So that's your Active Directory setup. So we want to do here, not call it Active Directory. We want to call it Active Directory, Directory Services, Forest, Setup, and Configuration. So for this, if you want to use the same VMs, just say then build a domain on the same VMs on all 3 sites, set up Active Directory replication, Active Directory sites and services. And then what you want to, so that's, what does that entail in case you guys want to know? So you want to build your subnet in there, so that will include subnet, sites, and links. So that's what you have to do. So like I said, like you may want to wish to break this down if you want, or keep it like that. So it's really up to you. I suggest you add this. I also suggest you add it over here, troubleshoot connectivity issues. Remember when you set up your ping, you have to disable firewall, so don't forget that. Some of you's like, I've done everything correctly, they just can't ping each other. I don't see responses, disable firewall. Okay, so because at first you want to disable firewall because you did not set up your domain yet. Domain by default will allow ping, right? Because port 445 is allowed. Ping normally in the background does not use a specific port, but if you block port 445 in Windows, this is only a Windows thing. If you block port 445 in Windows, ping will not respond. You won't see a response in ping. Okay, so because ICMP doesn't have a port number, right? But in Windows it does. So this is again just from sort of experimenting and the experience out there in the field. So here also you'll have replication issues. So you want to say troubleshoot replication issues. So for example, you finish Active Directory, you finish your site. And so what you can do also, see, I've seen some students, they do this, and you say build hosting co.com domain. They may approach it a little bit differently. And so I'm saying it's all up to you. You're the one who's controlling this. Like that's all up to you. And you may want to choose to do it this like this is another way for you to do it, saying, I want to build my site and services, build AD sites and services. So that's again, subnet sites and links. Then you want to go and build second root domain, and that is designsoft.com. Configure replication. So some students may do it this way. Like, so some students may build all three domains, then configure replication, or build the first domain, configure your replication, and then when you're setting up the rest of the domains during the setup process, you're selecting which site they are. So that's during the setup process, not after, but during the setup. So it's up to you if you want to do it before you do your set up your forest, you configure your sort of your replication topology, or if you want to do it after you build your domains, you go configure your application. Now, here's what I've seen students have experienced. Both of them will work for you, not an issue. The only thing, if you set up your sites and services after you build your domain, after you build your first domain, which is your first root, because you're going to have a second root, and under the second root, you're going to have a child, right? After you build your first domain, if you go set up your Active Directory sites and services, and then during the installation, you pick the right site, the replication happens during the installation. So just, it will reduce a lot of the load for you trying to figure out if it's working or not. So just keep that in mind. So you may choose to do it before or after. The project is fluid, so you may decide to do it your way. We may have a question here. Just a second. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, so you finished that. So just to finish this up, configure replication, and also testing. And then you may want to say build a child domain. Build a child domain for the third site. And then finally, replicate entire forest. So you see how what happened here is that, so this is now not just Active Directory, so this is Active Directory forest and replication setup, setup and configuration. So like you sort of like you combine those two things together. So you either combine them or you separate them. It's up to you, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Which means all of this then gets removed but then you will need to figure out if any you need to troubleshoot. So those are in here. This is considered a milestone. So just keep that in mind, okay? Sorry. And the same goes here as well. This is considered milestone. So again, just so when you are setting up your um, Microsoft project, let's go back to see if it's downloaded. Oh yeah, it is. It is downloaded. We are gonna mount, right click, mount. Did it mount? Okay, anytime, preferably this year. Oh my God. Windows is thinking. Yes, please open it. Thank you. Thank you. You're the best. Yay. Yes, install. That is available, I hope. There it is. Yay. Yay, it's installing. It's installing, guys. It's installing. It's happening, folks. It's happening. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's keep going here. Um, okay, so we finished milestone one. So let's just write this milestone number one. And this is milestone number two. We can go ahead with milestone number three now. So milestone number three, you're looking ADDS group policy. And then you start writing down, for example, the configuration based on the case study. So here, so you need to write it down though. You need to write down what are those policies. So this is going to be policy one, whatever it is. So whatever it is, you need to write it down here. Okay, so configure. So you want to, so the best thing is you want to do is you want to configure, right? So you don't just write policy one and then you write down. So you want to say configure whatever that policy is, right? And then here, configure. And then at the end, what you want to do is you want to test GPO settings on Windows 10 or 11 client. So it's up to you if you want to do Windows 10 or if you want to do Windows 11 client. So it's up to you. Make sure that you're doing this on Windows either Professional or Enterprise Edition. Don't do it on Home Edition. They don't necessarily have all those group policy extensions that you would see in a professional and also enterprise versions. So just to stay on the safe side and you don't have to troubleshoot all those big errors later on. Either you have a pro, again, so either, again, just to clarify, pro or enterprise. Enterprise edition. All right. What I suggest you do, if you go to the same site, which is the DevTools, the one that I'm in right now, that's the portal.azure.com. So we call that the DevTools. You can download the Windows 10 or Windows 11. And during the installation, it'll ask you what type of Windows do you want to install. Go either Pro or Enterprise, because it'll ask you there is Home Edition, there's other things in there. Education Edition, make sure you Enterprise, okay? I suggest you do Enterprise because it's just a lot easier to do that. Oh, the following needs to close when, okay, looks like we need to close Word document. So let's close that and come back to it shortly here. Okay, continue. Thank you. But you're better off going with enterprise. So that's the best thing. If it was me, I'd go enterprise and just be done with it because I know that you'll have all the bells and whistles that are needed for me to configure anything I want, right? And also do whatever testing and less troubleshooting for you. Okay, so that's what you're gonna have to do for your group policy, and then you're gonna move on to other parts. We may have a question. Just a second. Um, this thing is installing. Mm. Will the education version of Windows work? I have not tried it on Windows Education, so I don't know. I don't know. I did not test it myself, so I don't know if it's going to work or not. But just so you know, if you go to DevTools, when you download Windows 11, it'll ask you, and even Windows 10, if you downloaded the latest one, it'll ask you if you want a Pro or Enterprise during installation. You can test it if you already have the ISO, just test it out if you want to. For the client, you'll be testing GPOs, access to your DFS, and also access to the application that you picked as part of your project. So those are the three tests that you'll be doing on your client. Um, okay, so you are done with GPO, and then you move on with DFS. So that's another milestone. So this is going to be, for example, milestone 3. Milestone number 3, and this is going to be milestone number 4. Again, so under each of those milestones, you'll have like tasks, right? You may break down even the tasks into sort of subtasks if you want. Okay. Now, after you do this in Microsoft Project, what you have to do is that you have to set up a schedule. So what does that mean? So this right now, as it stands, this is called work breakdown structure, right? So you're breaking down all the activities that you have to complete into sort of subtasks, right? If you want to refer to it that way. So that's what you're doing over here. You're breaking down all the activities that you have to complete as part of your project. Now, setting up sort of start date and end date for each of those tasks makes this now a schedule, makes this document a project schedule, okay? So now you want to set up a project schedule as part of your as part of your as part of your sort of as part of the requirements for building the project schedule in your project. Okay, so you need to set up the start date and end date. Now, what is the best thing to do here is that you can do it in a way where you have to set up. I think before GPOs, I would come up with CSV files for users, PowerShell scripts to create or use it. Correct. Yes, absolutely. This is just a sample. I'm not saying that this is how you would do it. Like, so normally the first two are, this is really the first thing that you have to do. After that, of course, you'll have to configure your OUs, correct? You have to configure OUs in your PowerShell because as part of your PowerShell, you're going to decide where they're going to live in your Active Directory. And then for your OU structure, policies will sit on your OUs, right? Which is what is suggested also in the chat. So that is correct, yes. But the first two are, there's no way around it. You have to go through the first two milestones anyways. So milestone 1, milestone 2, and then after that, you can go ahead and figure out what are the dependencies, because that's really part of this project is to figure out what are the dependencies that you have. So what do I mean by dependencies? That is, for example, I cannot build Active Directory. Oh, looks like it's done. Okay. So let's open up project now. Project is installed. Yay. I'm the only one who's excited. Yay. Oh, it's asking me for a product key. Go view key. This guy. And then paste it here. Activate all this. Accepted. Yay. Guys, it's an achievement. Come on. I mean, you have to give me the credit. You have to give me the credit. This is an achievement. Don't even say it's an achievement. Come on. So if I okay, let's go and open up a sample just so we can clarify that. So bring this, download this guy. There we go. See, it picked it up. I'm not saying so. Remember, this is the group project. This does not, all the activities in here may not necessarily apply to you, right? So just so you know, I'm just showing you a sample of how to really build your project. So you can see over here, let's zoom in a little bit. Yo, Project 2021 looks different. How do you zoom in here? Oh, like right here. What? How do you zoom in on the left then? There it is. All right. So if you see here on the left, for example, network setup. And so what they have done is set up network VMs, install Windows, do a server prep, which is naming. You put a naming on the server, do the IP address. And also, if you look at, they do Windows Update as well. So this is, they call it server prep. And then you set up the subnet for the networks, and then you deploy Windows LAN router, and then you test a connection to the internet. So that's one of the things that they have done. If you look at, for example, their site one, remember they have 4 sites in here, you have 3 sites because this is a group project, but just to look at it as an example. And so for me, I can collapse this. You see, I can collapse it. I can collapse the milestone, right? And then open it up. And so if you look at this, like how many days is it going to take you? And then you have the start and then the finish date, right? The person who's responsible for doing this, you don't have to fill that. So that's good news. In a group project, you do, but this is a solo project, so you don't have to do that part, filling up the person, because I know it's just you. Okay. But you just have to really include your project work breakdown structure. You include the start and the end date, and also set up dependencies in here. So dependencies is this right here that we call this that's your predecessors. And so, for example, you can see the predecessor for this specific task is the one on top, which means I cannot do testing without completing task number 7, which is sitting in row number 7, right? So that just tells you right here, what are the dependencies? Okay, so it tells you over here, I cannot do this. I cannot start configuring my site without completing doing my network setup, which is in row number 2. So you write down the row number 2 in here, right? So it tells you what are the dependencies. And why is that important? Because if you look at the chart here to your right, it will start building a link for you automatically. Like this task is linked to this task, and you can see the link between all the tasks that you have. Some of the things there are dependencies, and others we don't have dependencies. Do we have to add dependencies to every task? And no. If there is dependencies, if there are dependencies, they need to add it. But in some cases, there are no dependencies, right? And so, for example, you could say, I want to start building um, doing my group policy, making group policy configuration, and doing Linux server at the same time. There is no link between those two things. Like they're not really linked to each other, right? And so in this case, there's no dependencies between those things, right? But for group policies, you cannot configure it without setting up your Windows, sorry, your Active Directory first, Active Directory Forest. So then your forest is the map for your group policies, setting up your forest first. That is the dependency for your group policies. For Linux, the only dependency that you have is setting up your router, right? And so that's the only, however, that's not necessarily true, because for your Linux server, remember it must be, I believe it's a requirement that you have to join it to the domain. Let's just cross check that. Oh, what happened? There we go. Go back here. Let's look at the business case, because I believe in the bottom page. Oh yeah, so Linux integration with AD. So then that tells you have to join Linux to the domain, which means installing Linux, setting up Linux, you join it to AD, which means AD now becomes a dependency. It depends on which site you want to put it on, right? So the setup for the AD on that site is a dependency for this. Like this is just to give you an example. The project is going to be a little bit fluid. It won't look the same for everybody. So just so you know. As long as you know the dependencies, and there are some dependencies in your project schedule, that gives me indication that you have thought about your project schedule. That's not really all what I care about. Okay. So just so you know, the sample that we are looking for, and then like I said, what people have done here, for example, if you look at this sample, they go to the milestone and then they set up dependency on the entire milestone. Okay. I will accept this if it is true. I will accept it. If it is not true, I'll tell you what do you mean exactly by this, because this specific task has nothing to do with this specific task. So why are they linked together at the milestone level? So I will ask you that question. So the sample that we're looking for over here, this was not the updated sample that students, this is just like you guys, you make a submission in Brightspace, but then you make changes. And then the final submission that students actually make is on Microsoft Teams. So previously what we used to do is that I have a like sort of a sub channel for on Teams, like Group A, Group B, Group C. Those are all sub channels. When they open up Microsoft Teams and go to the course, you will see sub channels in there. And each sub channel, there is the files tab in there. They upload all their project documents in there. So we use the files tab as sort of their the updated version. So that's what I used to do. Okay. Now, doing the same thing here in this course, which means I have to create a sub channel for every single student. It may just look a little bit messy and people may get a little bit confused, and especially those who like to look at other people's files, right? So that's why you keep it with you offline, or if you want to submit it on Brightspace. By the way, I did configure Brightspace to accept multiple submissions, so you can go ahead and check it out. So I won't grade until I sit with you first. So when we sit on the 27th, I say, which one is the updated one? Because I'll ask you that question. If it is on Brightspace, I'll open up the one on Brightspace. If it is on your computer, I'm just going to say, okay, open up the one on computer. Let's go through it together. Okay. Um, But if you want to set up your milestones, like I said, you can do it. If it's actually at the milestone level, just write it at the milestone level. That's fine. I'll accept it if it is true, but you can go down to the tasks level. I don't want to see every single thing has dependency because they may not, right? Because some of these technically, technically in a real project, we have multiple people will do, we will doing different things on like sort of at the same time, right? But in some cases there are dependencies, so you have to wait for others, right? So all what I want to see on my end is that, have you done some dependencies? Is it true? If it's true, then okay, that's good enough, right? I don't want to see on every single task, like it's going to take you a while until you complete this project's schedule. And so that's why I don't want to make it, I don't want it to take too much of your time, because while you're building this, you're also thinking about configuration, like subconsciously, I guess. You're thinking about configuration now. So that's what you're doing. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you are building your project schedule. So it tells you over here, just like you suggested, it says, oh, before setting up the group policies, we'll have to configure PowerShell scripts and then configure replication. So which is what you hinted for in your in the chat as well. So that is correct. Same thing. So you have something for Linux. Of course, Hyper-V and SharePoint, that was so Hyper-V is the WDS. They call it Hyper-V because you have to do it in for the group project. They had to do it in Hyper-V. For you, this won't be the case, right? Because there was sort of a technical challenge in there as well. But we don't want to go through that because I don't want to confuse you. But you can see that those things were sort of a requirement that they had to do, which is all shaved off when we got to your section because it's a solo project, not a group project, right? But again, just to show you a sample, so this is what it looks like. So just keep in mind that you have to write down the tasks, start date and end date, which will populate the duration for you automatically, and then set up the dependencies, which is their predecessors. So those are the 3 sections that you have to fill when you're building your project. So remember, the duration will show up automatically when you do your start and end date. Okay, so let's go back to, because I know it complained when we were trying to install project that we need to close Microsoft Word. So let's go back and pull it up again. I think I downloaded it, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay, so just to clarify, again, so you want to list all the tasks required to complete the project, break down each task into smaller manageable subtasks if necessary, align realistic start and end date to each task, ensure the timeline accounts for all project phases and is logically sequenced. Okay. For example, like you cannot say, oh, I want to do Active Directory first and then build my router. Like what? No, you have to do it the other way around. You have to do your router first, then build your Active Directory. So there must be some logical sequence, okay? And also dependencies. And that's how you set up your logical sequence when you figure out your dependencies through predecessors option in Microsoft Project. Identify and highlight milestones throughout the project. Include all milestones, dates, and description. Assign responsible parties for each task. You don't have to do this because it's just you. So this is just to clarify as optional because it's really just your name in there. Specify any additional resources required, tools, software, materials. Identify dependencies between tasks. Task B cannot start until task A is complete. Clearly illustrate those dependencies and the schedule. Format, you're going to use a Gantt chart or similar project schedule tools to present the schedule. Use project schedule because that's the industry standard out there. That's what they use out there in the field. I remember one of the groups, they used a very cool tool and it was available online. I don't know if it's free or you have to pay for it, but it showed really nice charts in there. And they showed me a sample and they said, are we okay using this tool? And so the sample is like, yeah, that looks okay to me because you're essentially communicating that to the client. Because I was wearing the instructor hat and then also wearing the client hat at the same time, right? Which is what's going to happen in your case too. Ensure the schedule is visually clear, well organized, and easy to understand. Documentation, provide a written document explaining the schedule. Again, that's Microsoft project. Include rationale for task sequencing, allocating resources, any adjustments made to the timeline. Project schedule in Gantt chart format, which is Microsoft project format. Submit your assignment in Brightspace. Okay. So just so you guys know, the deadline for completing this is, so just remember, it is going to take you some time to finish because you will be building this. You're going to, and oh, by the way, if you want to reach out to me in between, like before the submission, which is next week on Thursday, if you want to reach out to me in between, it's okay. I can definitely give you some feedback. But build it first and then show me, and then I'll tell you what are the issues. Okay, so do spend a little bit of time on it at least just to build it up. So remember, next week on Thursday, we will go through the risk register. It is a very simple and an easy document to complete. We'll also look at a sample as well. Okay, and then Friday, it's going to be an online session. We are going to meet with every student sort of 5 minutes here and there just to complete. And again, if you want to meet with me before, like if you finish, for example, on the 26th and you want to meet with me on the 26th, I can do that. So if you want to do it that way, that's fine with me too. So I know that, for example, when I start looking at some of the diagrams that I have seen, and I gave everybody, okay, yeah, you're good to go. You're good to go for those diagrams. When the time comes on the 27th, I'm going to say, okay, I've seen your diagram. You're good. Show me now your project schedule is, for example, what I'm going to ask, right? Show me your project, your risk register, just so we sort of narrow down the scope of the discussion because I have already seen their diagram and it's good, right? So remember, if you want to reach out to me before the 27th and show me what you have done, you have the option to do that. Any questions for me? I know I've been talking quite a lot. And I want to go eat my wife's hamburger before she comes back. Any questions for me? Anybody questions for me? Um, yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, I do. I like tomatoes. Yeah, I do. One thing I don't like on my hamburger is jalapeno. Like, nah. No, so the project, huh? Project plan. You mean the project plan, like all the documents for the project plan phase, you're saying, right, Jacob? Is that the question? Or just the project schedule you're referring to? Like, I'm not sure if you're talking about the schedule or you're talking about the design schedule and risk register. I'm not sure. Oh, that's due next week on the 26th. So it says here submit. Oh, sorry. Let me just zoom in. I don't think this is clear for you guys here. Sorry, guys. Here, let me just zoom in. So it says here project submit phase two project schedule right there. So on Thursday, the due date is Thursday. But if you finish it early and you want to meet with me just so I can see it and give you feedback, that's okay too. Or if you want to wait until the 27th and I give you feedback on the 27th, that's fine too. Now, just remember on the 27th, I'm hoping I'm going to meet with everybody. And if I don't, I'm going to make a list of students that I have not met. I'm going to send them an email. I'm saying, hey, either you were not available or I didn't have the chance to meet with you. Can I see you before October 3rd? And I'll give you my availability as well, just so you can schedule me, just so you can meet with me. Or if you want to meet with me on the 3rd, that's fine too. So what I've seen happen is the week of the October 3rd, which is this week here. Sorry, let me zoom out. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Um, sorry, a little bit more. So which is week 5, that's October 3rd. That week, normally what I see is students, they do testing. Like they build a router and then build the VMs and then do testing between sites, connectivity between sites, because that's like the main thing, right? If you have connectivity, you're good. Keep going. You are doing good. Just so you know, on the 3rd, we will talk about sort of the VMnet setup that you have to do in VMware Workstation. Oh, I'm glad I talked about VMware Workstation. Make sure that doesn't expire. Make sure your VMware does not expire before you do the review with me. Okay? Make sure your VMware does not expire. Because Broadcom, those are the guys that make like network cards, right? Broadcom, they bought VMware. They changed the licensing model. You can sign up now, go and register in a Broadcom website, and then download a VMware Workstation. Don't use your Nate account, use your personal account. So just so you know, use a personal account, and then when you download VMware Workstation, it'll ask you, do you have the key? And then there's a button in there that says, oh, this is for personal use. So click on personal use, and then you won't have to add any keys, and it'll keep going. I don't think it ever expires too. I'm not entirely sure. There's no like expiration date. Uh, Here, let me just respond to this question. We we can do the review. question for me. Hold on. Can I schedule a call after class today to show you my diagrams? Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, definitely. For those who want to see me after class, if you want to show me your diagram, I'm available. So risk register is due on the 27th midnight or before the review. Good question. It is actually before the review. Yes, it's before the review. But like I said, because this is your project and I come in as like an advisor to your project, if you don't finish it also, if you don't finish it on the 27th and you want to do it like on the sort of the 30th, that's okay too.